All right, how are you guys doing today? All right. Thanks to the UPAA for having me. It's been about 9 years since I was in Salt Lake. I was here for the 2002 Olympics. It looks a lot nicer now than it was back then. A lot nicer part-time of the year, that is. But so they asked me to come out here and kind of speak about my work, but more specifically, speak about how when you're with other photographers who have the same amount of gear, same positions, level playing field, how you come away with something different. And I think that's important if you're shooting college sports or college events, or if you're shooting professional sports, or if you're out in the field, you know, embedded in war. You have to figure out a way to separate yourself. So let me just start off by giving you a little just background about myself. I never really thought I was going to be a photographer. I had no plans to become a professional photographer. I actually went to UCLA. My first 3 years, I was a biology major, and I had aspirations of being a doctor. Actually, my parents really wanted me to be a doctor, but in the back of my head, the thing I always loved was art, and primarily painting and sculpture. And so my third year, I transferred. I didn't transfer. I switched schools within UCLA. I switched from science to art. That really pissed off my family, my parents and stuff, but I realized I wasn't doing this for them. I'm doing this for myself. What do I want to be doing for the rest of my life? And at that point, it wasn't photography. It was, I wanted to become a painter. I don't know why, but I was okay at it. And I took a beginning photography class, and I was immediately hooked. It was all the same, it was governed by all the same rules as painting was. But rather than working on a painting for 50 hours and having a painting that you're really frustrated with, it only took a 50th of a second, and I was frustrated with a picture instead. So it just made sense to switch over. And when I got out of school, I was very lucky to land a job in a photo agency, which at the time was the leading sports photography agency in the world, all sport photography. And I showed up to the office, didn't know what I was getting into. At that time, in my little joke of a photography book, I had a couple of sports pictures in there of my friends at school playing volleyball and some swing pictures from meets I was competing in. And it's totally out of my league. Walked into his office and see unbelievable pictures by guys like Pascal Rondeau, Simon Brudi, Bob Martin, Mike Powell, all these giants in the sports photography field. And but I knew I had my foot in the door, so I walked in. I said, whatever job you have available, I'll take it. I need the money. I need to learn. And they had a beginning photo editor position at the desk, which for me at the time, you know, I didn't really know what it was. And it just entailed looking at thousands and thousands of pictures a day. And that was kind of the filter of everything that came through before it hit the web. And it was right when photography was starting to become more on the digital side of things. Everyone was still shooting film, but we were scanning stuff, and stuff was getting up online, and it was an interesting time in photography. And so I did that 5 days a week, and the 2 days off, I shot on my own. Got credentialed through them and just took pictures more for myself. And luckily, there was a managing photo editor at the time that saw that I had an eye, that I was keen, and he put me in the right direction. And I think with anyone starting or in the middle of their career, at the end of the career, everyone will attest that at some point you had a mentor. And it's very important to have a mentor, especially in photography. Whenever I do workshops or speak to students, you know, I say, don't ever think you do this by yourself. You have to be behind someone, and someone has to support you along the way. So luckily I had that, and this is a short, I think it's about 3 or 4 minutes. This is a cross-section of my work from 2010, you know, from 2010 back, so probably about 14 years worth of sports photography. It doesn't have anything from the last year in it, unfortunately, but I could show some of that stuff later. I think as photographers, we want to always think that we're producing our best work latest, and you're always at the top of your game. So I'll go ahead and play this, and I'll continue talking after the slideshow here. This gives you kind of an idea where I come from, how I see things. I think the biggest challenge in sports photography, as many of you know, it's a very competitive field. You have to figure out a way to separate yourself from the rest, and it's really hard to do, especially with digital technology and today, where everything's up immediately, and everyone's kind of playing with the same set of tools. And you find yourself in situations like this where, you know, you're in a pit with a bunch of other photographers, and everyone's using the same camera gear, everyone's in the same position, everyone's shooting the same athlete and moment. How do you distinguish yourself and make yourself different from the rest? One way of doing it is not taking a picture like that guy right there. He's probably gonna get in trouble. But, and early on, let me go back one. Early on, my mentor, my first editor who I had, Daryl Ingham, told me about the 6 Ps. You know, like, what the hell is the 6 Ps? And he's this English gentleman with this really heavy accent from Windsor, England, and he said, the 6 Ps, mate, are, and this is really bad English accent, sorry. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. The 6 Ps. Best bit of advice I had early on. And I think a lot of sports photography and photography in general is when preparation meets opportunity. Some people call that luck. I call that being prepared and having good timing. And this is one moment where I was at the Athens Olympics in a photographer with maybe 40, 50, 60 other photographers all shooting the same thing, but no one else got this moment exactly like this. And it's one of those things that it's a bit of luck, but you have to be prepared. You have to be ready for the moment. And it was funny, because to this day I remember how it happened. I was sitting there shooting. I was dead center. I saw a guy jumping up from the USA on the left. And if you see the moment when it happens, you usually missed it, right? If you see it through your camera, you missed it. I remember just hammering the shutter, looking in the back of my camera going, I think I have something here. And I remember the guy left me going, oh, crap. And the guy looked right at me going, oh. And I just remember like waving to our editor, our runner, get this out now, please get that out on the wire right now. And it's a good feeling when you have that. It doesn't happen every time you go out, it doesn't happen every day, but every now and then if you're prepared and you're lucky, you get it. This is another instance where I didn't know that the water was going to make a shape of a glass. And it just, you know, surreal picture. The hand over there was like a waiter's hand serving up a glass of water. This is the transition area at the Beijing Olympics. I was just shooting a water station, but I was on it and I got something else out of it. This is something I thought about for a while. You know, this is a water droplet reflecting the Olympic rings. This is at the Torino Olympic Games. And one of the stories was there was a lack of snow the first week, so I wanted to kind of illustrate that in a photo. It's just working with light. I'm a big proponent and fan of working with light and the graphic quality of photography. And this is, you know, probably, you know, a minute in the stadium where the light was just right, and this guy's shadow, girl's shadow, was going across it just perfectly. And you know, a minute later, the next heat, it didn't happen that way. The minute before, it didn't happen that way either. You don't always have to be in the stadium to get the picture. You know, this was hanging on the catwalk of the Olympic Stadium, and the photographer next to me started vomiting. That was a really good scene. So sometimes it's better to be outside the stadium so that doesn't happen to you. This is outside of the Beijing Olympic Stadium. Someone once told me that the picture is where you find it, where you make it. You don't have to be in the spot. You don't have to be inside the stadium in the A position to get the picture. A lot of times when I'm at an event, I just came back from the US Open, following around some Irish kid. You guys hear about this kid? Yeah. And I mean, if there's a B or C or D position when I'm working on a team, I'll take that position because I know there'll be less photographers there, and you'll have just as good a chance as you get a great photo. One of the things Jaron asked me to speak about when he first approached me with this was talking about different angles and remote cameras. This is obviously a remote camera. This is when the Canadians beat the Americans at the Vancouver Olympics. Remote cameras for me, it's a pretty integral thing in what I do, but never do I think my remote camera is the A camera. It's always the B or C camera. The camera in your hand is always your primary camera. I remember early on, I'd set up this remote camera, I'd get all excited about it, spend hours doing it, would totally blow it, would get nothing out of the remote camera, and then I forgot that I had a camera in my hands, and I had nothing to show for. So always cover your bases with the camera that's in your hands first. Get the banker shots, and then work on the more riskier shots second. Don't think about the big shot first, in my opinion, because you sometimes miss the entire picture. I'm having fun underwater here. I really enjoy the underwater photography. This is the Australian team jumping in. World Championship water polo game. This is diving at the Pan American Games. I enjoy the underwater photography because it brings a different dimension. And it's always different. Every time you go out there, the water's a little different. The light's a little different. It's like an alien planet sometimes. Thank God for scuba gear. So this kind of just, everyone always asks me, oh, how do you set up a remote camera? Well, this is just my little sketch drawing of how I do it. For the most part, you have your underwater camera that's pre-positioned before the meet, pre-focused. You know, everything's set, including aperture, shutter. I usually do it all manually, depending on the situation. And you really have to visualize the focusing of it, the composition of it, what you're capturing. And especially with the remote cameras, because once it's down or hung up in a catwalk, you can never touch it again. It runs. And with the underwater camera, you have it set up on a plate. Sometimes you have flash, sometimes you don't. And you have a cord tethered, or underwater cord, tethered out to a Pocket Wizard. And usually when I'm doing this, I have a transmitter on my main camera body, so I'm just firing it while I'm shooting the other pictures, so I'm not even thinking about it. And you put a massive card in there, like a 32 gig card in there, so it just keeps on going and going and going. At the end of the day, you look at it, you get something nice. Most of the times you don't, sometimes you do. That's kind of what that angle looks like there. That's first heat, so there's nice reflections under the water before anyone breaks it. There's another reflection shot. That's actually a setup shot of Nellie Coughlin. So, I mean, especially with underwater photography, there's so much you can do with it, just like anything else. And on a lot of assignments, you're sent an assignment thinking, this is what I want to get, you know, and that's the shot I want to get. But then you have direction from art directors, from editors, saying this is what we want. This is what we want for the cover. And a lot of photography with what I do is it's a compromise. It's a push and a pull. You have the client saying they want this. You have what you envision in your mind, and somehow you have to make it a happy marriage. And you have to be happy with it. They have to be happy with it. This is actually a shoot for a workshop where I was just showing different techniques underwater, and somehow she ended up in this outfit. I still don't understand how my assistant ended up with her mask. I don't know how this scene unfolded. It's very weird. I don't know. But anyways, that was my favorite shot, and kind of a superhero feeling. And got used for this magazine cover, which is kind of nice. But I think early on in my career, I was trying to look at the big picture. I was trying to figure out how can I separate myself. I don't want to go there and just do the bread and butter photography pictures. I want to do pictures that people go, wow, what's that? How does that work? And one of the first events I got assigned to was this Long Beach wave pool. And it looked like this little rinky-dink event, which sometimes are the best things to shoot. And so I went to it, and I walk up, and there's a wave pool, and Queen Mary's right behind it. There's the picture. And walk up to this area, and it was a little video platform. Sat on it for 5 minutes. I was shooting a roll of Velvia. If anyone knows what film is in here, and Velvia. It was very nice, high contrast, high saturation film back in the day. And shooting a roll, within 5 minutes, someone said, "Oh, this is the video platform. You got to get the hell out of here." And it was my introduction to, okay, TV owns the world. You have to work around them. I got my frame. I was happy with it. All I needed was a couple minutes to get it. And it was like my first big picture that was an SI. And I remember from that point on, I said, okay, well, I think I could do this. And I really enjoy the swimming and the surfing side of things, the sports, because I came from kind of a athletic water background, and I love going to Hawaii, shooting big wave surfing. It's a place called Jaws. This is a little break in Maui called Windmills. This is me trying to escape getting crushed by a 18-foot wave. And I'm going underwater, holding my breath, and I look up and just Hail Mary a shot. And if you notice, his front of that board is just barely in the frame. I got lucky there. But that's me trying to escape with the surfer. And I got a nice picture out of it. That's Andy Irons. I'm trying to get Andy Irons away. Rest in peace, Andy Irons. But I was lucky enough to shoot him in his career. That was earlier in the day. And I think for me, because I have an athletic background, I'm able to get places where other people can't, especially with water stuff, and that's important. And the other thing good about shooting surfing, is you can go surf it too. That's me surfing later on in the day. And a buddy shooting me right before I got completely hammered by that wave. So going back to remote cameras, I started thinking, okay, where are the wildest places I could set cameras up? So I decided, okay, I'm going to do it at bobsled at the World Cup. How am I going to do that? I don't know. I got to figure it out. I kind of did a sketch, and from the sketch, I started planning how I was going to do it. Showed this to the USA bobsled people. They first laughed at me. And I kept on calling them, kept on emailing them. They're like, oh, this guy's serious. He really wants to do this. So on top of everything from liability insurance to getting a car photography rigging rig, I built a remote camera from scratch. It was just an aluminum frame with 4 suction points fired by a trigger that was pretty much fired as soon as the brakesman put his butt on the seat. So it was firing all the way down. And this was the initial frame that I was envisioned. And a lot of times, as you guys know, you have visions of what you think the shot's going to be, what the best shot's going to be, and it's always those fun accidents where you get better photos. And this picture ran an SI. I was happy with it. But a run later in the day where the camera actually moved was a better picture. And it was on a ball head, and it moved like that. And it's another thing when you're doing remotes, you have to be very, very careful. Every little piece has to be safety down. And God forbid something happens and something breaks off, it has to have a safety cable on it. So that's the #1 priority. And that one got used in ESPN. So it's nice to do something like that and see it used and feel like you did something that was a little different. So I said, okay, if I did it on a bobsled, let me do it on a kayak now. So I moved on to a kayak. So I built a rig for the kayak. And you can see his little cord coming out of his shoulder up there, right where the arrow is. That goes to a Pocket Wizard receiver. Everyone knows what Pocket Wizards are, right? Yeah. And the receiver, I'm triggering it as he's going down this course. So I'm running down the course with him, triggering it as he's going. This cord goes through the kayak, pops out here, and then goes into this SPL housing here. And that's how that's fired. And it's one of those things, you just get lucky. That was lucky that the water framed that picture like that. That was, 1 in 1,000. Literally, I think I took 1,000 pictures and had 1. So I'm not just saying that. And it makes the hard work worth your time. So I moved on from bobsleds and kayaks. I said, okay, I want to do a remote for bull riding. So I had to get a cowboy outfit, get some Windex. I built this little box out of bulletproof glass and buried it at a very small very small rodeo, because that's the only place they'd let me do it. And I made sure the glass could hold well over 3,000 pounds, and did all the safety things I needed to do. And then on top of that, approached all the people who own the livestock, all the bulls, and said, you know, this is down here. If you're not okay with this being here, I'll remove it for your runs of the bulls. And everyone was fine with it. And so we did it, and every couple of bulls, I had to switch out a new piece of plexi because the thing would get all scratched up, and I have to clean it off again. I've done this once. I don't think I'll ever do it again. Because, I mean, it was, I don't like dressing up as a cowboy. I mean, nothing against cowboys, but it was a pretty stressful situation. You have to change out these things, but I got a couple good frames out of it. But that was kind of cool, as after he got thrown off. So, I mean, remote cameras is one way to do it, you know. I think another way is also just thinking in a different way, trying to really, I mean, usually before I go to an event, I have 10 or 15 different ideas in my head that I just start obsessing about. I think when I was a kid, maybe I was ADHD or OCD, but I just think about things and okay, how's this gonna work? How's this gonna happen? Okay, you got the sumo wrestler stretching. They need to go to the bathroom at some point. I'll wait at the bottom of the escalator till he goes to the bathroom. And you get moments like this, which I think are much nicer. Waiting in tunnels till players come out. I think football is the best sport on the planet. I mean, I like shooting, swimming, and water sports, but football, I've never been to 2 football games that are the same. I mean, I'm sure you guys agree. Football is awesome. And you don't always have to be in the A position. I'm behind the stage here at the Super Bowl. Everyone's shooting from the front, and I go behind, and I get a picture of his son and Drew Brees, which I thought was better than him just lifting the trophy that everyone else had. So, oh, I don't know how that got in there, sorry. That was another Super Bowl. Sorry about that. So in football, you know, the moments happen very, very quickly, just whether it's halftime show or action shot. That's me right over there. And it's an NFL photographer, Paul Spinelli. We're friends, so I mean, I could kind of bag on him here because he obviously missed the picture. And it was one of those throws that it happened very quickly. And I luckily just grabbed the camera around my neck. And usually for football, if you guys shoot a lot of football, I have, you know, telephoto lens, zoom, and then my Hail Mary grab camera around my neck. And that's always focused 10 to 15 feet away from me. You know, that's usually, you know, it's usually on TV, so I don't have to think about that camera, but if something happens, I grab it. And this is one of those situations, I just grab the camera. Luckily, everything's sharp. It's all in frame. Right before it falls in his fingers, touchdown, Vincent Jackson. And then it gets used, New York Times, and then gets used in SI. And Paul Spinelli's pissed off at me because this is my slideshow. So, and with action, I feel the same things dictate portraiture. I feel like this is a portrait of Gail Devers. Everyone knows who this is. This isn't her running, this is her. You know, she's not posing for a portrait. This is a found portrait, as is this of Dale Earnhardt Jr. This was shot on a Kodak Canon 520. Do you guys remember those cameras? It's a big brick. In my hand, I got big hands. My hand barely fit around this thing. And it was just luck that he was in the garage and something was reflecting off the inside of the garage. It was there for a second. I actually think that day I was late getting the track. So if I wasn't late, I wouldn't have got this. That's the way I look at it. But funny things work out like that. And this is a NASCAR event, and that's what's that quarterback's name for the Cowboys? The ex-quarterback for that's Troy Aikman, yeah. And this is what it looked like from there. So how do you approach one event and think of it from a different standpoint if you go to one event? And I'll just quickly go through my my Ironman story from last year that won first place World Press. And this picture story, for me, I've been there a couple times. I want to approach it and do it differently. And I'm not sure how many here have done triathlons, but it's one of those things is once that gun goes off, you're always chasing after the athletes. You're always one step behind them. So you have to look at the course and figure out where you're going to be. Hopefully you've got water access, and hopefully you've got access to the roads. You have a motorcycle or a car you can get around, because there's no way to stay in front of them, especially when they get on the bike, unless you plan it out. And this course is no different. I mean, it's Ironman is an unbelievable distance, 120-mile bike. Once they're gone, they're gone. So my day starts off doing the Ironman at about 4 a.m. I set up all my remote cameras. I put a remote camera at the top of the tower. I put a remote camera at the edge of the dock to get that classic picture with the sun coming out. And then I get my scuba gear and go underwater. I put the cameras on intervalometer, turn it on, and just keeps on firing every 10 seconds. It's another intervalometer camera, just firing, it's firing. I'm in the water at this point, shooting this stuff. And so after sitting underwater for about 10 minutes, you get in position, you get super deep, make sure you have enough air, and you hear the gun go off after watching fish go by for 10 minutes. And it's just the mass of humanity going overhead. And to this day, the Ironman start for me is one of the coolest things in sports. It's just the water boils with people. And that picture kind of illustrates it a little bit. This is them coming back in over the coral, exiting the water. So from this point, you know, you're just chasing them. Then you get on your bike and you try to chase these guys who are going close to 30 miles per hour in 90-degree heat for 120 miles. That's Andy Potts up there in the front. And then I go to the airport, which is on King K Highway, and then get up in a helicopter for an hour and just shoot stuff nearby the airport, trying to get a different graphic perspective. This is probably my favorite one with, these are all bleached rock on the highway. And just letters to past ones or letters to competitors. Life is good, Ohana, what have you. And after doing that for about an hour, you hop back on the bike and start chasing them. They have dinosaurs out there. This is a picture that I found just because I drove on the course the day before. They have dinosaurs out there in the lava fields. They've got goats. And it's a really cool and special event. And it's one of those things that every time you go there, as anything you do multiple times, you want to see it in a different way. And that's the hardest part, is because last year I went back and I tried to go to these same spots, and you just can't do that. You have to find different spots. And that's the biggest challenge, is not only competing with everyone else, but competing with yourself and trying to find a different perspective, especially when it's easy in your own mind to fall back on what you know. Those are 3 different shots of the same thing. 2 of them are from remotes. It's from a remote. That's actually the same remote that was on the start line of the swimming. I just swung it to the finish line after the swimming was done. There's always amazing stories at the Ironman. This kid's unbelievable. Rudy. He's a double leg amputee. He's competed in 2 Olympic Games. Athletes in pain. Michael Phelps. Some pictures here of Michael Phelps. Lucky enough to chronicle his career from when he was 13 and 14 to when he made his run in Beijing. This is a tilt shift camera, so it's manually focused. I knew he was going to be in lane 4, and so I'm just focusing in the middle of lane 4 and hoping he comes through that at the right time. Underwater camera. Him breaking out of the water. Almost the same moment from above. That's the 100 butterfly when he barely beat the Croatian guy by, like, I think it was a 1/100th of a second, 1/1000th of a second. This is a good example of, the last picture is a good example of a picture that no one else got. This was a remote camera that was shooting the start picture of Michael, and everyone had to aim the same way. And after I thought about it for a while, and I said, well, after he starts on the relay, once if I swing it back to get the reaction of them, you know, urging in the anchorman. And I did that, and I thought it was a nice emotional frame. It's him winning one of the gold medals. So there's stuff you can plan in photography, and there's stuff you can't plan. This is a photo that I planned for a long time. And I wanted to photograph one of my friends who's a challenged triathlete. And it was a very illustrative picture where I want to show him running against the moonlight, against the moon. And so I followed the Navy calendar, watching the moon rise and the sun sets. And I needed to find a time of day where the moon rose right after the sun set, so the ambient light was still available, but it wasn't overpowered, so the moon wasn't blown out. And then I needed a full moon, December 3rd, 2006. And I needed an area to do it in. And me and JP talked about it. We found this area where I knew the moon was going to rise in our neighborhood. And it was a setup shot. I dropped them off at, I think it was like 6 o'clock. He had his cell phone. I said, okay, in 2 minutes, start running up the ridge. Started running up the ridge. We had one shot at it. Pretty close to what I envisioned. Doesn't happen a lot when you envision something that comes that way, you know, with what you thought it would come out with. And yeah, still one of my favorite shots. So a lot of this stuff I do also, I work one-on-one with athletes, which is a lot of fun. If you guys shoot portraits of athletes, the hardest thing to do is keep them captivated. You're working with guys they make millions of dollars. Since they're kids, they're told they're the best, and you have to somehow corral them and get a great photo, hopefully a photo that means something, that illustrates who they are. This is Darren Barracloth. I had him for, luckily, a full day in Vancouver, British Columbia. He's a mountain bike free rider. And he took his place in the middle of nowhere in Vancouver Island. Unfortunate part, it was raining. It was horrible weather. I was running on a generator with lights before I had packs. So we had to drag all this stuff a mile into the forest and light it. And this pretty much, I think this is 3 lights. There's one light behind him that has a yellow gel. One light on the trees on the left that's a green gel, and then his light, which has like a warming gel filter on it, plus balanced with the ambient light from the sky. This is for ESPN, the magazine, Bear Tracks. Oh, going back to golf. Tiger Woods, Torrey Pines, Ryder Cup, Masters. I did this picture about 3 years in a row, and I remember there's a random guy just emailed me out of the blue and said, can you try it again, but try to get the feet in there? Like, if you do it slow enough, the feet will be in the picture. Like, you'll see the feet. And I was like, oh, whatever. You know, and I didn't really think about it until he emailed me and he said this, and I said, okay, I'll try slowing it down. And I think this is close to a second exposure. And he was right. You could see the feet moving around. Everything else is blurry. The feet are frozen on the ground. Golf fans are pretty funny. It's Ryder Cup. This is something I did for Golf Digest. I wanted to go out and try to get something different, the Ryder Cup show, the atmosphere, so I shot fans. Tiger Woods. Just came back from McIlroy's historic run. And on the way here on the airplane, I didn't even see my stuff all week because I just gave it to the editor, and I finally started looking through it on the airplane. And I dropped this in the slideshow. This was the 10 tee box where he hit it within like 6 inches. But I just like the shot. It was with a tilt shift camera, manually focused with a 5D. So I had 2 shots. And I like it because the ball's still in midair. It's kind of just a nice moment before everything erupted. And the problem with golf is you have to walk and work your butt off so hard to get one picture like this. It's one of those things. The time put in isn't equal to the amount of pictures you get. But when you get that one picture, it gets used everywhere, then it gets used in ads, and then you're happy. This is more golf for Newsweek. It's Lorena Ochoa, who was world #1. And they had a very specific thing they wanted for the cover. And they want a lot of dead space at the top so they could drop in the type. And a lot of times you get that. You get, a very specific thing. And you're like, well, how about we do this? How about we do a nice black and white portrait? How about we do this? Like, no, we want a vertical shot against a white background so it fits in the cover. And that's when you have to just bite your tongue and take good direction. This is a very specific thing I did for Nike. And this is all done in post. I'll show you a little video I have of kind of the scene, but pretty much we shot every single college uni in studio, and they put it all together with the background we shot. and then added all the stuff like the smoke, fireworks, sky, everything in afterwards. This is kind of a silly one for Gatorade. Basketball. Very specific thing they wanted as well. It's a Chinese company, Anta. This is silly. I just threw this in there because it's just a very specific thing for Toyota. I don't know if you guys remember this ad campaign. It was like several years ago. They wanted like to show that Tundra can compete with athletes. It was just ridiculous. I mean, I was shooting this thing going, come on, are you serious? Like, and sliding in, he's safe. Oh, he caught the ball. It was just ridiculous. But this is the funny thing is they actually got the ball on his back. You can see right there. That's actually, that actually happened. They're able to throw the ball right to the back of the car, which is impressive. But this is the Del Mar opening day, the hat contest, a great hat contest. And this is, I just set this up right in the front with a seamless background and 3 lights and just grabbed people as they came through. This is from this year's Super Bowl. Same kind of idea, I just grabbed fans, made a collage out of it. Just trying to figure out some stuff, something that people aren't doing that you could somehow take away from the event. And it's almost personal to do it, but also kind of, you come away with it and you feel better about the event. Another football player, Vincent Jackson, shoot we did for him. This is San Diego as well. This is a funny story. This guy, the professor, it's called The Professor. This is for ESPN The Magazine. He was this street ball player, like little guy, he's like 5'6", but unbelievable ball skills. And every time I fly into San Diego, I was like, oh man, the plane goes right by the buildings. There has to be a place to capture this. And so I drove around San Diego, downtown. I found a parking structure right next to the airport. And got permission from the guy who owned it. And I bought a basketball setup from, it was like Sports Authority or something. Built it on the roof. And every 5 minutes, he just jumped towards the basket when the plane would fly over. In between, we play one-on-one, and then another plane would come over, we shoot it again. But it's one of those ideas I had for a long time, and I finally did it. This is a shoot for the NFL. That's real fire in the ball, charcoal, lit up. And that's a background there that I shot the San Diego fires, and I took an image from the San Diego fires and output it on vinyl at Kinko's, something anyone can do. And it's a really small background. It's only 4 feet by 2 feet. And stood in front of it. There's 2 lights. There's a light on the background and a snoot on his face, and the fire in the ball. Shot at like a 60th of a second, so the fire can register, on the film or on the digital. This is another longer exposure shot. This is about, I'd say, 10 to 12 seconds. Anquan Bolden. And I wanted to show his position as a wide receiver. So completely black room with a black Duvetine. And this is light painting. So he's on one side in position at the line of scrimmage. 2 strobes pop as I open up the shutter. The camera is on a tripod. And as he walks across the frame, across the black background, I have an assistant painting him with a flashlight, a big flashlight, like a spotlight. All the way to the other side, picks up a ball off the frame, goes up, I pop the lights again. 1 frame, 15 seconds. Same idea, light painting, but this is with Christmas lights, LED Christmas lights. If you guys go to Robert Seale's talk, I think he does quite a bit of this kind of stuff. But you can get really creative with it. It turns into almost like painting. That's why I guess they call it light painting, right? This took some skill sewing on my part. I went to the Gap, bought Natalie Gulbis's outfits, 1 red, 1 white, cut them down the middle and sewed them back together. Then I took 1 white seamless, one red seamless, and then did the opposite color. I had a lot of time on my hands that week. This is Lisa Fernandez. She's used to be the pitcher on the Olympic softball team. I wanted to show that she was an army of one. She could pitch, she could throw, she was an unbelievable leader. So these are two large mirrors put together, repeating her image. I've done some work for Discovery Channel, Animal Planet. One of the shows I had opportunity to work on was Jockeys. It only lasted 2 seasons, but it was fun. This is Chantal, Canadian jockey. And it was cool, you know, I just kind of shot them in the locker room, getting ready, post stuff at the race, just for their promo stuff. It's a poster. Some action stuff. So one thing for me is I know a lot of sports photographers, there's a lot of guys out there who shoot just golf or just motor racing or just one sport. And for me, it's all about the variety. I could only do this if I could do different sports. This is Jamie Mitchell. He's the 9-time world paddleboard champion. This is in Hawaii. It's nice when you get the rainbow. These are just 3 generations of watermen. I've done a lot of stuff for NFL Players Association. This was their kind of campaign showing the players as real people. This is Scott Fujita. This is in Brooklyn Bridge Park. It was really cool. We had the entire one end of the park rented out. It was a really big production. It was a lot of fun. Same part of the shoot. This is a New York studio we rented out. As you guys can see, this is all shot on film too. This is 4x5. That's where you get that nice edge, saying Fujifilm. But it's nice when you get a client who is, they're open for your ideas creatively. And my idea is like, let's shoot this on film. Let's go with this old school 4x5 look. So we also did 4x5 black and white Polaroids, which is nice. Any opportunity I could shoot film, I still try to shoot it. This is what their ad campaign was. Football doesn't define me. Put it all together in a collage. This is a 4x5 type 51, I believe it's called. 52, 55. Yeah, positive, negative, yeah. And this, I bought like, I think 3 boxes when they stopped making it. And I had it sitting in my fridge for 3 years or 2 years. And I said, yeah, screw it, I'll go ahead and see if it's still okay. And I shot the world champion, Ironman world champion with it. One good thing that came out of one job kind of leads to the next is the Ironman triathlon. When I won the world press for that, it kind of lined up more jobs for me. The Ironman people contacted me, and then we started our own like magazine. It's called Lava, and it's just for Ironman. So it's kind of cool when you do stuff, and it kind of leads to other things. This was a funny shoot I did, Virginia camel races, and I didn't get a job out of this one, but I was sitting there, and they said, "We need a jockey." And, you know, I'm about the size of a jockey. I'm not too tall, so I volunteered, and I was actually in first place going around the turn. That's me right there, on the camel, and I almost fell off that thing. It's not like a horse; the thing lunges, and but I got beat around the turn by someone who's better than me, obviously more experienced. So I got second, but that was kind of funny. Things come out of shoots. You never know how things work out. Sometimes you get jobs. Sometimes you get a ride out of it. This was, let me show you a couple recent things here before I wrap up with the picture slideshow here. This is a recent shoot for ESPN the magazine photo edition. The photo editor came to me, Jim Serber. He's like, "Hey, Don, I want you to go and shoot college volleyball, but I don't want you to think about covering the event. I want you to go there and light it really starkly, maybe with 1 light or 2 lights, and just think of it from a different perspective." So I set up 1 light, then I set up another light, just spotlighting the floor, and just kind of work with that for a couple days, or for the first day actually. And I was happy with this stuff, but for me, like, nothing popped out as like, okay, I got a great picture out of this. So after thinking about it for a while, I knew that on the last day, there's going to be a great celebration dejection from winners and losers. So I set up a remote camera above the floor and didn't spend too much time on it. but I set it up knowing that this might happen. And you know, when all the pieces come together, like the guy looking up who's the MVP, getting swarmed by his teammates and everyone walking off, it makes it worth your time. Recently I did some stuff for the Washington Nationals for all their kind of ad and posters. They're the baseball team in DC, for those you don't know. And went out to their spring training in February, and then went out to their park last year, and we shot 2 sets of 6 players. Some setup, some kind of candid stuff. And it was a really great experience. You know, people always ask me, oh, do you shoot this with a leaf shutter? Because it's frozen. And you know, a lot of the cameras, the DSLRs, sync at 2/50th of a second or slower. And I'm not sure if you guys have gone to the Pocket Wizard site or own Pocket Wizards, but you can buy this new thing called a TT5, Flex TT5. Does anyone have a Flex TT5? They're freaking awesome, because you could sync up to 1,000th of a second on a DSLR. Now the medium format guys are probably bummed because this cuts into their market, but you could take your Canon 5D, which syncs at 200th of a second, and shoot at 1,000th of a second. Hard action. Any strobe it works for. You don't have to use it on a Canon strobe. You can use it on a Pro Photo, Speedotron, what have you. It's a really cool thing. It's a game changer, I think, for shooting action sports if it's posed. This is the phenom, 18-year-old phenom coming up through the AAAs. He's going to be the next Babe Ruth, apparently. I forgot his name. The best thing about working with clients on top of the relationships you have with them is getting to go to games. And I was in DC for the U.S. Open. Called them up. They said, "Hey, come down to the stadium. We'll hook you up with some tickets." Went down there, saw my pictures up big on the wall, parking lot. And the best part, sitting behind home plate with a beer. By far the best part. And it's one of those things. You don't expect to be a photographer. Some people do, some people don't. I never expect to be a photographer, and I'm just kind of riding this wave and taking it as it comes, and the good with the bad. And luckily, I've had a lot of good in my career. Before I take questions, I'm not sure how we were doing on time, but are you guys interested in seeing any multimedia projects? Yeah? Yeah? All right. I've got a couple other videos here. They're short little pieces. I'm not big on multimedia, but I feel like as a photographer now, you have to either be shooting video too or doing some sort of multimedia. So the first thing I felt I did that was a multimedia project was just doing a time lapse at a balloon race, which was pretty easy thing to do. I just set up a camera and let it run on an intervalometer. I'll just show it to you. It's kind of funny. And it's very short. I think it's only a minute and a half. So when they were getting shot, it was down on the ground and I was up in a balloon shooting, and I'm talking to the pilot of the balloon. I'm like, so how does this race work? Where are we going, Because the wind just carries you wherever it's going to carry you. I mean, it's not a race. And he's like, oh, you have to hit targets and drop little sandbags on targets. I didn't see any targets or any sandbags being dropped. I mean, I don't know how that was decided, but it was interesting. Balloon race. I think the only thing that would have made that better, other than the Energizer Bunny, was if like a bone turned into like a spaceship, like in 2001, or something. I don't know. Last thing, I got a couple other things here. I want to leave enough time for you guys. You guys have questions? Yeah. On the what? On the time lapse? Well, I just used one camera at a time, but probably a total of maybe 20 to 25 different spots. The thing, you're looking at it, you could edit it probably another minute and a half out of that. It's a little, some stuff's redundant. I'm not very good at editing and video stuff, but yeah, about 20 or 25. So, yeah. That was shot with a Canon 5D Mark II with one of those 24 to 105 lenses on it, and it was probably set at about 35. And usually around my neck, I've got a 35 millimeter or a 50 millimeter. And that usually, if you're sitting in the corners between the, the hash marks, or not between the hash marks, between the, the little orange things, that's usually the perfect focal length. Mm-hmm. I hope not. I hope not. I mean, I like shooting stills. I really do. I mean, I hope the day of, shooting still photography never dies. I mean, I don't want to learn how to use a video camera really either. I mean, I have very limited knowledge with video. I think motion's a complete different, set of tools. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, if everyone had a red camera, everyone would have it and it wouldn't be that special, yeah. There'd be no failure, exactly. I think, well, I mean, not everyone can afford a red camera, which is a good thing, I think. But, I think there's the gray area between video and still, I think is, for me, still very much a gray area. I don't think that photographers or even will become videographers, and videographers can be still guys, but that's just me. Ask me more questions out there. Come on, guys. Yes. Everyone gets in a funk for sure. And another thing one of my mentors said early on was, you're only as good as your last picture, which is true. Like, if you sit there and you made a picture your first time out, and it was the only picture you made your entire career, everyone's going to remember you as a one-hit wonder. You get that one picture. Your job as a photographer is to go out and find something different every time, or at least try to. And I think that's how you grow as an artist or as a person or anything, is to try to push and kind of metamorphosize the way you see things, whether, musician, artist, whatever. I think your job is to kind of push the limits of your own personal perspective, so, yeah.
Bob Rosato spoke to us a few years back. He had 30-something cameras, 29. How many cameras do you have?
4 or 5. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys have a lot of cameras, a lot of lenses. You go to the, Kentucky Derby, those guys are with 100 remote cameras. And then the magazine doesn't run one of those pictures. It doesn't matter how many cameras you have set up, What matters, or how many assistants you have. What matters at the end of the day is choosing that one thing that's hopefully different than everyone else's, or not even different, something that, as a person, as a photographer, as an artist, that's your vision. You're not going out there to put 100 remote cameras so everything's covered, so you have every single possible combination of pictures. You go out there and you say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna try this. And I don't do too many. I don't do that many remotes at like horse racing, but the couple of remotes I've done, like I've got this one that's like from behind the horse's
down low is a black and white one. I just know that's a remote that not that many people have done. And it's just because I kind of talked my way in with the, the workers there, and I got it in that spot and said, hey, I want to try this, and I explained to them what it looked like, and I don't think it comes down to how many you have set up.
You have to choose one camera, one lens.
Wow, one camera and one lens. I don't know if I have a go-to, but I mean, for DSLR bodies, I really like the Canon 5D Mark II. And people say, oh, it's slow for sports and this and that, but the file is beautiful. It's like shooting, back when digital first came out. You have to have good timing. Your timing has to be on. Like that football shot with the ball right about to touch his hands. That's 2 frames a second, So I'd say probably that body. If I had one set up, I really like my Toyo field camera with the, I enjoyed that camera a lot, so, yeah.
I want to mount a remote in our ice hockey arena at Liberty above the goal, and the only thing up directly above it is a round air conditioning duct, which kind of reminds me of a bobsled. That band that you had around the bobsled to secure your
Right. Well, pretty much the frame, there's an aluminum frame that you had to saw and put together. It was like an erector set, and that frame was kind of a square shape and had suction cups, like the pressurized suction cups and whatever. And to keep that down, there's a ratchet straps. So you get the straps and you ratchet strap it down, similar to like if you're connecting a bike. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Don't tighten it too much though, because those things can crush also whatever it's on if you tighten it too much. So. And make sure you have liability insurance too.
Do you have different feelings about a good shot from a remote camera versus a good shot from a handheld camera?
Well, nowadays it's instant gratification if you're holding the camera, And it's funny because I know a couple of guys who very old school, and they still don't look at the back of their cameras. They pretend it's film. They know, oh, I can't, But it's immediate gratification now with digital. And it's, whether you have it or not, which is a good thing because if you know you have it, you can move on to the next thing. Back in the days with film, I think a lot of photographers, including myself, would end up shooting a lot of film because you did not know whether you had it or not. You had to make sure you had it, you had to keep on shooting. So, in comparison to a remote and a handheld camera, I think with the handheld camera you have a better feeling because you can chimp and look at it. You can't really do that with a remote unless it's tethered to your computer or something, Yeah.
Have you ever shot ice hockey with shooting through the board with a plexiglass panel down low?
Oh yeah, they pull up the panel and you put it down there, yeah. Your question is how to do that, or?
Yeah, I'm about to figure out how to do that.
So when they pull out one of the boards ice level, and you put a plexiglass panel on the ice level, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on the arena setup, they'd replace that board, and then you put a remote camera probably on a plate, like on a floor plate, right next to that. Sometimes when you're shooting through plexi, what I've done in the past, when I'm shooting through plexi and I'm not using strobes, so you're getting some reflection, is at a gaffer's tape you could build a blind. And so what you do is you get like nice thick gaffer's tape from, like Robert's Distributors, Jody back there, he's got a lot of gaffer's tape in boxes, amongst other things. Shout out, Jody. And you could build a blind by just overlapping the gaffer's tape and making like a tent. And it'll take you about 2 hours to do, but your image quality would be a lot better because you wouldn't have like reflections and kind of a soft look to it.
You mean reflections from behind the camera?
Yeah, exactly.
For your intervals for your time lapse, can you talk about that, what you use, and how you determine how often?
Right. So if I depending on how long the camera's going to sit there, say it was, for 4 hours, as opposed to 1 hour. The 1 hour would have much shorter intervals, and the longer it sat there, the longer the intervals could be spaced too. I had no real equation how I did it. I kind of, what was more important actually was the frames per second when I put it together in the video. So what I did was I shot all the frames. Say I had like 900 pictures for one of the green shots, you know, on the green at the golf course. I wanted to condense that to, you know, 30 seconds. So I set a higher frame rate, and you could do that. QuickTime Pro has a great little plugin where you just go in there and you pick a folder where all the pictures are in, and then it automatically makes that time-lapse video. That's all I did for all that stuff. I used QuickTime Pro and then put them all together in Final Cut. But I'm by no means, you know, any good at Final Cut. I just literally just took all those QuickTime videos and put them back to back to back. Actually, I have one more time-lapse thing of that Nike job I did. You guys want to see that? Yeah? Let's see. We have time. I think we might be cutting to dinner time pretty soon. I'll just show this one. Just quick. This kind of gives you an idea of the studio setup I had for that Nike shot, the big boom ad. Kind of shows the setup of it, at least. only thing with GoPros, it's like they're cheap, they're small, and you can get HD video out of them, you can get stills out of them. Like the stills, I don't think we're quite there yet, but I've had a still blown up, a double page spread, and it's held up. But it was in full light, you know, the sun wasn't low light situation. So they're fun way just to kind of augment your coverage and stuff. So I think you guys get the idea of this one. I got a couple other movies here, but I think I'll cut it there. And if you guys have any other questions. Oh yeah. No, I've never ever had to use it other than like every time you go to a large rental house and rent out a studio or rent out camera gear, you have to have liability insurance. That's the main thing I use it for. If you hang a remote in a building, you have to show them your liability insurance. But usually if I'm on an assignment for an ESPN or a Getty or an SI, they've got liability insurance as well. So the most important thing is you need that to rent gear, rent lighting gear in the studio space and that stuff. So I've never had to use it. I've never had to use a deductible or pay the deductible or anything like that. Knock on wood. So.
Now, is it a continuous coverage, or do you buy a piece of these for your liability insurance?
I just do it annual. Yeah. So, yeah.
You ever had a remote camera walk off?
Oh yeah. I've had a couple walk off. Yeah, I had a camera disappear at the Ryder Cup golf from a TV tower, and I get along with most TV guys, but there's only one guy that was up in that TV tower, so yeah, but yeah. But the good thing was, I think it happened like right when Canon was just putting out their new version of the 1D. So the camera I got was better than one I lost. But then my deductible went up as well. So.
Don.
Yes.
What are your favorite houses for underwater and pool and surfing?
I used to use SPL housings because they're based in San Diego. But then I was approached by Aquatech about 3 or 4 years ago, and I've had a good relationship with them. I'm not sure if you guys see Aquatech housings, but the pros over the SPLs, I think, are they've got these quick release latches, so you could like literally change bodies or lenses out really quickly. All the domes screw down, so it's just very quick and easy and interchangeable. They have all stuff for all Canon and Nikon bodies. They've got little housings for pocket wizards, so you can do lighting stuff with water, or you can do remote camera stuff. Yeah, I think Aquatech, for what I do and what most people do, is the best thing out there. As long as you're not diving like under 50 feet. 30 feet? I've taken it 50. And it didn't leak. Yeah, but I wasn't supposed to say that. So, got another couple minutes of questions if you guys want to. Yeah.
So for your overhead remotes, could you give a little description of your safety rating?
Sure. So usually what happens, depending on the lens size and the body size and stuff like that, usually it's a 70-200 for the body, and then a magic arm and super clamp. So every one of those pieces has a safety cable attached to it. Starting with the super clamp, you pinch it, you put it over the bolt, safety cable there. And then you have to run a safety cable through the plate that attaches to the camera, the magic arm of the camera. And then you put a safety cable. What I usually do is I take off the camera strap and I put those really kind of heavy-duty key rings on the loops of where the camera straps go. And then I put cables through there. And then I put cables on the pocket wizard on top, to the little lanyard loop. And then clamp everything to the pole. All the safety cables go around the pole. So every piece that could move is clamped down, including the lens. If it's a 70-200, I usually put another cable around the little, what is that thing called? Yeah, tripod collar, thank you. And so everything that's movable or could break off is at least safety, and then I gaffer tape the hell out of everything. So. Yeah.
Do you stroke your venues like basketball and hockey?
Yeah, if I get someplace and it's an arena where there's not strobes already in the building, then I get there with enough time and with prior permission, I'll strobe it. Last time I did that was at volleyball for ESPN. I've done it at the World Championships of Rodeo. I get there and I usually, what happens for arena lighting, I usually do speedotrons, or I have a set of white lightning mono heads, 4 of them, 1600 watt. And those are really easy because your mono heads, you put them up, each of them has their own super clamp and stud. I mean, I could put 4 lights up in an hour. You know, safety, run the cable, everything. That's what I usually do for that. And then for the portrait stuff, I use 70s, Profoto 70s. Because they're just very, very mobile. So, yeah.
You said the key to your coverage is preparation, being prepared. I was just curious to how much time you spend before an event, scoping out the scene, looking for angles. Also, the magazines that you're working with, do they give you any kind of feedback on, yeah, we'd really like a shot like this, or this is something to try, or do you feed those ideas to them?
Yeah. Starting with the magazines, feedback. Usually I work with an editor. When I work with an editor, absolutely bounce what I've done with them or what I'm planning to do. They sometimes have ideas as well, so it's good to find what they want and what I want to get out of it and somehow make it work. With scoping out venues prior, sometimes I have a day to do it, sometimes I've got an hour, sometimes I've got 5 minutes, just depends where I'm going. I mean, one thing that you get good at is quickly determining the camera angles you want. Like if I walk in and I have access, like within a couple minutes I'll be like, okay, there, and there. But it's nice to get there ahead of time, even a day ahead of time, and have like a shooting tech day where you can kind of go through the motions and then get some images that are lit, like a pre-light day where you can shoot the stuff, show the editor what it looks like, and then say, okay, let's tweak this for tomorrow for the big day, or that looks great, let's just keep it like as is. So sometimes I have more time, sometimes I have less time. It all matters, where I'm coming from and where I'm going and stuff. So.
Thank you.
No more? That's it? I'm off the hook? All right, thanks guys.
Alrighty, well thank you everybody for enduring. We're almost there, almost dinner, but there's just one more thing you gotta do. The group shot. So, I know it's been a long day and I don't